Hey guys, it's Kevin, and this is my review for the series premiere of Bloodline. Yes, the new Netflix series that came on today, Bloodline, and I was definitely looking forward to the show. I actually didn't know too much about it, though. Here's the thing, I didn't know too much about it, but I was very intrigued by it. I mean, just the tagline and the poster, and plus because it's a new Netflix show, and Netflix rarely makes anything that's bad. Well, there was Richie Rich, but that's for kids, so I don't really count that. But besides that, Netflix really hasn't made anything that I would see as bad, and this looks really good to me. And after watching it, Bloodline is amazing. I love it. It has potential to become one of my favorite new shows. I'm going to try to review it at least once a week. So it's only for the series premiere. And then next week I'll try to review episodes. Well, next week I can't, but I'm going to try to be consistent with it and stick with it. And hopefully I can. And let's just get into this episode because it was amazing. So we start off with basically we see this voiceover from John Rayburn, who is our main character, and he is anticipating that something's coming. And all he says is something is going to go terribly wrong, and we don't know what's going to happen, but we know that he's done something bad. And he goes to his parents' hotel in the Florida Keys with his family, as well as the other Rayburn siblings. First of all, we have Kevin, who he is played by Norbert Leo Bus. He wakes up in his underwear, he curses when he sees the time and appears to be sleeping in an office. And then we see Meg, who she's with this unidentified man and she's having sex with him in a car. And she then gets a call all about what's happening and everything. And then we see John's wife. Diana, and she reminds him that the weekend is supposed to be fun. And you can see right away that there's definitely something up with their family. You don't know what it is yet, you can definitely tell that their family is kind of broken. And Kevin gets on a boat and told to party like it's 1999, and Meg gets interrupted in flagrante by the phone and tells Alec she has to go, and he says, say hi to your mom for me, and they laugh, and I thought that was kind of funny. So we eventually realize what they're waiting for. They are awaiting for the arrival of their brother Danny. Danny is this, you can tell that right away he's very unstable. I mean, the second we meet him, he has his mouth open, he's asleep in some random place. I mean, you can tell there's something about him. So it's the 45th anniversary of their parents, Sally and Robert Rayburn, and Sally is very nervous about the guests and festivities to come for the party, let alone any drama between her kids, because clearly there's a lot of drama between them, and I thought that was really interesting. Right away, you're very interested in seeing what this family is like, and John heads to the bus station to pick up Danny, and of course everyone's like, well, why can't he just go himself? But Danny's just that unstable that John has to pick him up from the bus station, and he held the bus early, thinking about turning around entirely, and while the other party and competes in a fierce beach rope pull, Danny eats alone in a diner, and he runs into an old acquaintance, Eric, and the old friends catch up over a joint, and they're discussing Danny's failed restaurant business, and you start to see more of Danny. And when Eric offers him some easy money performing an undisclosed job, John calls Eric, wondering if he and Danny have crossed paths, but Eric denies that they've met, and just as John returns back to tell his mother Sally that her son won't be making an appearance. Also, I forgot to say that Sally and Meg have this conversation about how Sally doesn't like the guy that Meg is dating. She thinks that there's a lot of better men out there for her, and Meg's kind of upset with her about this. Definitely, she's really upset with what she's saying, and she's really upset about that. So, and it's understandable why. I can totally understand why she's upset about that. So right away, I was already very intrigued in the show. I'm like, I already love where the show is going. It's very interesting, and but then we get another voiceover from John. And I will say this, guys: the more voiceovers we get from the show, the more intrigued I got into the show, because John says how I couldn't have known there was what that there where all this was gonna end up. And the scene cuts to John in this fierce rain. He's carrying a body through the woods. He trudged through, and it's like, okay, whose body is he carrying? And eventually stomping neck deep into the ocean, and the body is revealed to be that of Danny, and that right there intrigued me. I'm like, okay, what did he do, Danny? Did he kill him? Did Danny go unconscious? Did Danny die? Clearly, there's something that happened to Danny, and I find that to be very interesting, and it just makes you want to watch Danny's character more and more. So the episode cuts back to the party where everyone's dancing and drinking casually, and John's wife Diana asks Meg when she's going to have kids, and Meg says how she'll need a good man first, just as her fiance Marco scoops her up for a kiss, and kind of weird that she asked her that, but okay. And she's like, "Well, did my mom tell you to say that?" And I thought that was kind of funny. So you can see that their lives, besides Danny, are pretty normal. I mean, they have good family lives and they bond well. So Danny approaches Meg and asks if she can squeeze in one more chair and at the head table for a date he's invited. And basically you can see that Danny is already ruining things. He's been ruining a lot of things, and you can tell that they get into a huge argument over this. It's literally a huge argument, and there's chaos that ensues between all four siblings. Danny insists that his date Cheryl should sit at the family table, but none of the others agree, and they're all yelling back and forth. Danny claims he won't sit at the family table without her, and he starts talking about how gets to sit with Diana, and how all the other family members get to sit with their dates, but he can't, and they just don't really want him there. That you can tell they don't really want him there. That's really what it is. That they don't want him there, and he's causing drama. And they don't want to deal with it, and it really was a big scene to see. And you're kind of wondering, okay, where's this gonna go? So we cut to later, and Robert is giving this speech, and Cheryl is repeatedly, drunkenly interjecting her thoughts, which was hilarious. I have to say, such a funny scene. And Robert's speech, he alludes to the time in the past where the family was in trouble, thanking those who helped them through, and he then goes through the list of his children, honoring each of them. Um, basically how, Meg got very successful and how John got very successful. However, his comments about Danny, his oldest son, are a bit less enthusiastic. And the oldest son rises to say a few words in return, and it's like, okay, what is he gonna say here? It looks like he's about to make like a total scene and completely ruin this for himself, but he has no cards in hand, but he just jokingly asked to borrow a 20, lightening the mood. And they all laugh at that, and you can tell though that he wanted to say something more. You can tell that he probably wanted to yell at him what he did, and to Danny, he doesn't really see himself doing anything wrong. You can tell that Danny doesn't think he's really doing anything wrong, but he is. And Cheryl gets increasingly drunk as the night goes on, even falling on the dance floor. And later that night, after the party has ended and almost everyone's gone to bed, Danny apologizes to John for not getting off the bus like what was planned. And John steps outside and gets called into work by Marco, his apparent co-worker at the station. And Danny tells his brother that he's thinking about moving back and helping their parents with the business, but John's very skeptical about this. Probably because of how just unstable Danny really is. He doesn't think he's in the best condition to do this. He doesn't think Danny should be doing this. And I can understand why John really doesn't want him to do this. You can totally understand that. And honestly, didn't really want Danny to run the family business just because of how unstable he is and how I just don't think he should be running it. Just because of Danny is not really in the best position to be doing that right now. So I thought that was very interesting when we see that. And so we then flip between these two, basically, and Danny asks John, if he's willing to be talking to her father about him sticking around. And you can see that they have a very good bond. One of the things I like about John's character is that he's trying to be a good brother to Danny. He wants to help him out. He really does care about him. And out of all the siblings, he really does seem like he's the most supportive. And that's something I definitely like. He's not an anti-hero by any means. He's a good guy. And you're just wondering what could have gone so wrong to Danny. What could have happened here? You can tell that there's something wrong with their lives already, and just by seeing in the present, it's already about to get worse. And Danny then wanders around his brother's house, taking in the happy family pictures, and Diana thinks it's John that's there. I have to say, this was a very creepy scene, definitely. And she then finds Danny there, and Danny is just so weird in this scene. He's so weird, and he's so unstable, and it's so creepy. And there's this strange, menacing moment that he has here, and you can't really tell what it is, but he's so menacing, and he's so creepy. And he tells Diana all about this girl that he was dating, and it gets really inappropriate at how he wanted to have sex with her, and how this girl who wanted to be hit in the face during sex. It's really weird, and it's really fucked up, I have to say. And basically he asks Diana a reasonable question. Why didn't Diana asks him why he didn't just leave, and basically then the story sort of levels out, and Diana sympathizes with Danny, but then he says, "I'd love to see John single." And remember, he's talking about her husband here, and his wife is present in the room when he's saying this. Now, I don't know why Danny would do this, but he says, "I'd love to see John single. I'd love to see him try to play the field." And why would you say that in front of your sister-in-law? Like, seriously, you could say anything to her, and that's what you say. It's ridiculous that he said that. I can't believe that he said that, and just, wow, Danny, such a low blow. Just wow, I couldn't believe he actually said that. So then we see, the episode cuts back to the party where everyone's dancing, drinking casually, and John's wife, Diana, asks him, I already read this, okay. So, basically, Danny then apologizes to John about the whole thing with him and the business and everything. And then we cut to John in the rain carrying Danny along the shore. We see another flashback here. And eventually well, flash forward at least. He's climbing into a boat and he's plopping Danny on the ground next to him. And still you're wondering what could have happened here. What could they have done to Danny? And back at home, Danny and Diana talk about Cheryl and his most recent relationship prospects. And it's just, again, it was a really weird story, I have to say. And it's just really really weird. Apparently he like violates women. It's just really weird. And meanwhile, John Marco and some other local police wade out into a bay where they find the dead body of this teenage girl who apparently was no older than 16. And before we see that, I thought that was really interesting. So Danny tells his friend that he can't get mixed up with him because he's trying to play it straight and right with his family. Because you can see that Danny does want to make an effort to turn his life around, but I think just because of how fucked up his life has been, that he can't really fix anything. I don't think Danny realizes that yet. So he goes for lobster traps, and when he dives again, he sees the same gold necklace we saw on that mystery lady on the bus, and because he saw that weird necklace before, and it's really weird. I don't know what that necklace really indicates, but I thought that was really interesting. So the Rayburns continue the revelry back at the inn with a volleyball game, and Rob sits to the side strumming a ukulele, not for nothing. And I thought that was good to see. I definitely enjoyed that. And we then see that basically Danny meets with Eric in the morning to tell him that he's not interested in working with him. As I said, that whole thing. And at home, the family and their guests are playing volleyball peacefully, and John tells his father that Danny wants to stay home and help with the business. Robert doesn't really like this idea, though. In fact, he thinks it's a terrible idea, and he's suggesting that the three siblings decide whether to let Danny stay, agreeing to respect their decision. And he says that he will go with their decision, but he needs them to make a good decision about this because, of course, Danny staying has positive and negative consequences. Yes, he wants to turn his life around, but he's so unstable and so, messed up in the head that it just might not be the right thing to let Danny stay. And as much as, John wants to help Danny turn his life around, it just probably is not the best thing to have him stay. And I like that he wants them to talk about it. So the sun goes down, they all talk about Danny, and Kevin is completely against it. Kevin is completely against Danny, saying he thinks that Danny's eventually going to screw up, crushing their mother's spirits, and he really, out of all of them, is the most unsupportive of Danny. Meg, I like what Meg says, that they maybe should give him a chance to change, and John worries that and the thing I like is that each sibling is kind of what we're thinking, because what Kevin says I do agree with, what Meg says I agree, and what Danny says I agree with, and what John says I agree, because John worries if they turn Danny down that he will leave and never return. And he adds that you don't give up on family, which is true. You can't give up on family. But there does come a point where you need to understand that you just can't fix everything. And it seems like they want to fix this, but they can't really fix this just because of how screwed up he is. And even though and I think the only person that can fix this is Danny. And they need to understand that Danny is the person that can fix this. So Danny's partying up. He's doing a bunch of coke, and even though he said he wanted to turn his life around, he's still doing coke, and you can tell that he's not going to turn his life around. He counsels that he shouldn't be begging his family for a job. He should come work for him, and his family doesn't care a whit for him. They said they treat you like a plague, your family, and Danny sees what looks like to be that woman from the bus, and it's really weird that this lady's here because nobody else sees her. So back with the siblings, they have that whole conversation about Danny and everything, and Danny and this girl walk on the beach, and she is gentle and he's gentle back. He suggests that they go skinny dipping, which is not going to go well, and it seems like a terrible idea. He struggles in the waves. The mystery lady seems to be out of reach. He sees that seahorse necklace again, thrashes about in the dark, and my question is this woman really real, or is he fantasizing her? I don't really know what's going on there, and I kind of feel like he's just fantasizing this woman. I don't know. So, I don't really know, because then when he gets deeper into the water, he shouts for help and his cries are muffled, and the woman is nowhere to be found. So, is he really that messed up that he's fantasizing this woman? It could definitely be a possibility, but I really don't know at this point. So he begins to have some sort of flashback or memories, including the image of a seahorse necklace as well as of that little girl running. It's that girl, but she's little, and it's really strange, and he continues to possibly drown. In fact, I thought he was going to die in that scene, and I'm thinking, okay, Danny's going to drown, and that's why John has his body. That's not what happens, though, and I like that because the show is unpredictable in that way. Because we cut to Sally in the morning, and she marches towards the shoreline with a sheet, and Danny's face down the dock. It's kind of a funny scene. Bear, he's completely naked. His his ass is in the air, but he's alive, and she throws a sheet on him, angry, reminding him that they have guests. And I'm like, that she's just like, we have guests, come on. I thought that was really funny, and she doesn't realize that he is unconscious, but he is alive. And I thought that was just, it was kind of funny, but at the same time, you can see that she also is kind of sick of him. Pretty much everyone is kind of sick of him, minus, I'd say, John's really seems to be the only person that's not sick of him, and Meg wants to let him stick around, but Kevin and, like, Sally, they're completely sick of him. So Danny and John go fishing later in the day, and Danny reminisces about a fishing trip from when they were younger, and he admits that he's a difficult brother, saying he plans to pay back all the money he owes. And John tells him that their father made his decision on whether Danny can stay, saying it's not going to work out. And Danny tries to get more info out of John. He wants to know why he can't stay, obviously, wondering if he even tried to convince him. And Danny says to John, and what Danny says to John is actually very creepy. What he says to John, it's just weird what he says to him, honestly. It really is. And he tells him that your life is not always going to be this perfect. And it's really just menacing what he says to him. He basically tells him that he's a difficult brother, and he says it's not going to work out. And he's like, your life's not always going to be this perfect. Things happen to people. Then you'll need me. Then you'll know. And John is pissed at him, obviously, because John is the one that's there for him. John is the only one that actually wants to be there for him. And John reminds him that he's been doing his best to protect him his whole life. His whole life, he's been there for him. He's been his big brother. He's been there for him. And Danny doesn't even care. Danny doesn't support him. And just, Danny is such an asshole, I have to say. And John is doing whatever he can to protect him. And John's being so protective of him. John's been trying to do whatever he can to help him. And that's how Danny repays him. Seriously, if John, and at that point, like, if John killed Danny, I could understand why. And John drops Danny off at the bus station later that night, and that was just a crazy, crazy scene there. I'm just like, seriously? That's what Danny says to him? And John tells him that he wants him to stay through the pier dedication. He wants him to stay. Even though nobody else wants him to stay, he wants him to stay there. He wants to help him out. But Danny thinks it's complete bullshit. He doesn't believe a word of it, and Sally and Rob, in the meantime, they're having a great time at the party while Danny and John drive silently. And John asks Danny if he's sure he wants to leave. And Danny's saying that he's gonna leave. And John calls out through the window that maybe he'll see him at Christmas. And they look at each other, both knowing that probably that isn't happening. He's gonna leave and he's not gonna come back. And John, I think, understands that, but he doesn't want to think that. He doesn't want to think that he's never gonna see him again, but yet he knows that that is probably what's gonna happen. And then we get the final monologue here, which just, this last scene was brilliantly done, I have to say. This last scene was amazing. And he says that, he says over the rain, he says, I always thought that the greatest thing that ever happened to me was being born a Rayburn. He says, now I'm not so sure. He's scrambling in the boat, and he pours gasoline all over Danny's body. And the voiceover continues, and when he poured gasoline over him, I'm like, okay, he's gonna kill him. And he's like, I'm gonna tell you everything. And we don't know who he's talking to here. I feel like John is being, like, questioned by family or something. I don't really know. He says it's not very pleasant, but it's the truth. What we did to our brother, we had to do. Please don't judge us. We're not bad people, but we did a bad thing. That was the tagline of the poster that really got me intrigued. He lights a flare, blows up Danny's body, leaps out of the boat, and that's how the episode ends. And honestly, I can understand why John did it. I can understand why he killed him, and I'm not surprised that he did it, because honestly, Danny was being an asshole. He deserved it, and he didn't want to be there for him. He accused him of not being there for him, and that really was John's breaking point. John is overall a really great character, and that's something I love about John, and that's something I love about all these characters, that they're all realistic, and they just feel like a real family, and there's so many things I love about the show. But wow, what a fantastic first episode. I really want to get more in depth of what I really do absolutely love about the show, and things that I just think work so well about the show. First of all, this is by far one of Netflix's best shows. I can see this becoming one of their top shows. I can see people continually binging the series. I think this is going to become one of their biggest shows. I really do, and I can't wait to see where we go from here. I can't wait for a second episode. I really can't, and I know I have to. I know I'm going to torture myself by waiting a week, but I did it with Orange is the New Black. I can do it with this. I really want to talk about the acting here, because everyone is fantastic in this show. Kyle Chandler as John Rayburn is always great in everything he's in, but he's so good in this cast. I think he's great here. He really just, he wants to be there for his brother, and he wants to help out his brother, but his brother doesn't really want him to help him, and I definitely want to find out more about Danny. You can tell there's a lot that Danny is hiding. There definitely had a very rough past, and I want to see more of what's really going on there, because I'm pretty sure there definitely is a lot more going on that we just don't know about yet. But Ben Mendelsohn is so good as Danny. He has so many layers to him. He is this asshole, but he's also really creepy as well. And a bit of he's a bit of a perv. He's a bit of a drunk. He's doing drugs. Like, he really just has so many problems, and I'd love to see a flashback of why this happened to Danny. Was he like this always? Did something happen to him? And I definitely feel we're going to get more flashbacks because he is a main character. Even though Danny is dead, he is the second main character of the show. So I definitely feel we're going to see a lot more of him, which I'm looking forward to seeing because I already love what they're doing with his character. Linda Cardellini as Meg, I think, is great. I want to find out more about her plot with the whole thing with her boyfriend and Sally not being supportive of that. I think that's really interesting. We don't really see a lot of that because the episode mainly focused on John and Danny's overall relationship with the family, but I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there because I think that's a really interesting plot as well. Sam Shepard is great as Robert, and he has some very funny lines. He seems like he's going to be a fun character. He doesn't have many dramatic scenes yet, but you can definitely tell that he does not want Danny back, and Sissy Spacek as Sally, I think, is great. Norbert Leo Bus has so many fun lines in this show, and he's always great. I love seeing I'm very happy that he finally has a TV show, and he's great in the show as Kevin Rayburn. I really love that he really does not want Danny back. Like, he vocally says that he doesn't want him back, and a lot of people don't want him back either, but you really care about all the characters in the show. That's something I definitely really enjoy. And then Jamie McShane as Eric, that's going to be the person that's going to ruin Danny's life. And he pretty much did. And I want to see more of their overall, like, how their friendship was. Why did this happen to them? What happened to Danny after he left that night? When did this killing happen? When did John decide that he wanted to kill Danny? Why did they do it? What did Danny do that made them realize that they had to do it? I think honestly it was inevitable. They just had to do it to him, and they really had no choice but to kill him. Jacinda Barrett as Diana Rayburn, I think, is great as well. And there's just something really creepy about Danny's overall relationship with her. I just find it really weird overall. But I also want to really talk about the writing to this show. The writing is so good, and there's so many lines that don't feel like writing. They feel like real lines, and they feel like this is a real family, and it's amazing to see because other than Danny, this family is pretty good overall. They have a really good dynamic, and in the beginning, that's actually really hopeful, and there's some scenes that are just fun watching your families do that, and I definitely really enjoyed seeing that. And I think it's really good the way they show that. I think the writing's great with that. This is going to become the next great family drama. I know it's going to be. And the creators of this show, they definitely know what they're doing. You can definitely tell that the creators definitely have a great idea what they're doing here. The cinematography is beautiful to the show. One of the things I love is that the first shot of the show is this beautiful, just like sunset, but you can tell that there's something not right about it. You can tell that there's going to be some drama, and I love that. And the narration also, Kyle Chandler does a beautiful narration to the show, and you're so intrigued by the narrations. The more the narrations went on, the more intrigued I was by learning more about these characters, by wanting to know more about what they're actually going through, what's the real struggle with them. And I'm very interested in seeing where the show just goes from there, because I think it's really interesting concept. I think the way they're setting things up, I am hyped for it. I cannot wait for episode 2. Like, seriously, guys, I can't wait for episode 2. And one of the things I like is that there's not really a lot happening on the show besides Danny dying, but the thing that just puts you into the show is just the overall dynamic of this family and hearing their conversations and finding out more about them. I can't wait to see where we go from here. I will say it is a very slow-paced show. If you guys don't like slow-paced shows, you're not going to like this, but I really like slow-paced shows. I think this is a great show. I absolutely love where we're headed, and I can't wait for episode 2, as I said. I think it's going to be amazing, and that's basically how I feel about the show overall so far. So this is my review of the first episode of Bloodline. Also, I love that the episodes are called Part 1, because I think that's really cool as well. Let me know what you guys saw this first episode. I absolutely loved it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for... Unfortunately, tonight is the series finale of Glee, so it's going to be for the series finale of Glee. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.